Good afternoon. It is Friday. It is the 19th of October. A little chilly outside and a little rainy outside as well. If you have been looking for the Ask Welfare Rights broadcast, you found us. We're here once again, and I'm saying we, even though I'm here by myself this evening. My colleague, Marion Kramer, is a little bit under the weather. This rain and all this running we've been doing is kind of tiring us all out. So I'm going to fly solo this evening for a little while. And once again, this is the Ask Welfare Rights broadcast. We're so happy if you're able to join us today. And I'm going to read a few things that you probably already know, but I'm going to specify a few pieces of information if you want to call us and me and talk about anything that I'm going to raise today. Please call us at 313-868-4336 or do use the number 313-868-0351. Those are the call-in numbers that are available. We are on live. And if you're on the website, you're going to go to www.tv33whpr.com. You're watching absolutely WHPR, and we're just glad this is the community radio, television, computer broadcast opportunity where back and forth banter, discussions, disagreements are always welcome. So my name is Maureen Taylor, and I work with the Michigan Welfare Rights Organization, and I have a few things that I want to share this evening in terms of the kind of week that certainly I've had and the kind of week that I think some other folks have had. And I'm going to give out a few numbers for some things that are coming up. On the way here, D.L. Hughley is, this may not be news, but he's talking about the outrageous incident that happened in Georgia just a couple of days ago, I guess, where there's a bus that is going around picking up people in Georgia, different parts near Atlanta and Biscayne and other places in Georgia, and picking people up that are predominantly elderly and maybe folks that are living in high rises and folks that are living in nursing homes who are competent and who want to vote. And the encouraging aspect of this is that folks are being asked, come on, get on the bus. There's early voting being allowed in certain areas of Georgia. And let's go get that vote in right now. And you have Miss Abrams, African-American woman. She seems so right, spot on, that's running for governor. And if she is able to win, she'll be the first woman of color to be a governor in that state. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm not sure if she'll be the first governor of a state in this country. I've forgotten. I'm so tired. I can't keep things in my mind anymore. But her opponent is the Secretary of State, which is the person that counts the votes. That's always, the clerk, always a little suspicious of how that entity works. But that's the candidate who is running against her. She's a Democrat. He is a Republican. And my sisters and brothers, what happened is that the bus, 45, 55 people on it, pulled up to the appropriate voting site. Everyone had their documentation, meaning that they had their voter registration cards on hand. And the state police were ordered to stop these people from getting off the bus, explaining that there was some miscommunication and that the early voting activities had ended. In other words, they were not allowed to exercise their right to vote. And everybody knows extended voting hours don't end 18, 19, 21 days, 3 weeks before the stated election, but that happened. And I'm thinking about how Reverend William Barber talks about all of these voter suppression attempts that are going on in so many places around the country. And to hear and to see this particular example of folks, African Americans, elderly people not being allowed to vote was really disheartening. But I'm sure that this is the kind of thing that's happening in a lot of southern states. I want to say that because I sure hope that there are no instances of voter suppression going on in places like Ohio, places like Illinois, places like Indiana, for sure, places like Michigan and whatnot. But that happened. That happened, and it was angering and sad. So I wanted to put that information out in the air. Then, not that this is second, but something else that was experienced since the last time we were on the air, and that is we gave Miss Eastside back, and that would be Miss Leontine Persons. And, people always say the individual looks so peaceful. She did, and that is not the defining description of Miss Persons. She was not about the business of trying to secure peace. She was always about the business of trying to secure justice. And as many of us from Welfare Rights, we attended her homegoing services and whatnot. Her family was there standing tall and holding on to each other during this difficult time. And all we could think of is the many years that Miss Eastside, a longtime member of Welfare Rights, supporter of Welfare Rights, the many years, decades we're talking about, that we were involved with activities together. And I'm just brought to mind one of the fundraisers we had some years ago at the International Institute, and Miss Eastside came to that event with a leather jacket on and a leather skirt. And she was the talk of the town because she loved to look appropriate. And I just had that on my mind that particular day, how beautiful she was at that event. And it was one of the many times where she came to fundraising activities and contributed some of the best baked chicken I've ever had in my life. She brought pans of it, and it was just seasoned perfectly. And the fun and the different meetings, she was part of the senior task force. And I would pass by some of those meetings. Miss Neely was in there, and Mr. Spence was in there, and some of these other folks. And boy, they would be doing battle on policy, doing battle on what kind of regulations they might have been arguing and fighting about to get the right language in place so that they could go forward and submit that language to whatever entity was being corrected because of injustice activities. So just to think about Miss Eastside not being with us, boy, that's such a difficult thing to manage. Then the third thing I wanted to mention is that when I open up my cell phone, and I got to find where it is tonight, the very the second number on my cell phone is Richard Hairston. And I think about Richard and his lovely wife every single day as Richard is just doing battle to try to retrieve and try to correct some medical challenges. It's going to be an ongoing battle because that's something that as we all get older, all of a sudden we're spending a lot more time trying to correct our health, trying to correct flaws in our bodies that are causing a toll on our health. And I think about him and how powerful a voice Richard had been over decades at this particular station, and the many debates and whatnot that Richard engineered and so many other people were involved in and whatnot. And his voice being silent at this moment, how painful that must be to so many of us that were listeners and observers and appreciators of some of the things that Richard brought to WHPR and brought to Detroit and brought to Highland Park and brought to Hamtramck and brought to Michigan And I can remember the stories when he would go to Europe and visit his sons years ago when they were involved with tryouts for different European basketball leagues. And I remember when his car was falling apart, and Richard came to the air, and I was with him on that particular day, and he was holding two sets of keys, and I was asking, what is that? And his boys had returned and realized that his car was in trouble, and her car was in trouble as well, and how the sons put money together and bought two cars, one for mom and one for dad, and how he was holding those keys. What a proud father, what a proud father. Richard continues to do battle and struggle over some health challenges and whatnot, and I say that to say this: we should keep J.D. Hill, we should keep Miss Eastside. We have a ton of folks that we have had to give back. And we've got a ton of folks who are doing battle about health conditions and whatnot. And we should always keep those folks in prayer at all times, because of their contributions now. And hopefully some of the folks that I've mentioned this evening may be able to make a few contributions in the future. I'm concerned that Marion Kramer is not feeling well today, and I don't like that. She's my national chairperson. If I do wrong in terms of welfare rights policy application, understanding regulations, teaching, advocating, administering, any of those kinds of things that so many of us have been taught to do, and I make a mistake, she's the only one that can correct me. She's the only one. Marion is a person that will fight for individual rights harder than the person who's being violated. And it concerns me that she's not feeling well. You know, for those of you that were at Central United Methodist Church yesterday, boy, were you lucky, because when we went down to the church this morning, the elevator stopped working on the second floor. And there was some 80, 90 people, I don't know how many, were at the church to discuss problems with the African American Museum. And boy, that would have been more than a notion if you all had to walk up and down to that fourth floor. But Marion was there, and she uses a cane, and I don't like that. You know, a little bit of arthritis in that right knee, and I'm concerned about that. So I'm raising these issues. Lila's mama passed, and, you know, it's a difficult thing to have to give a mother back. Or I had to give my mother and my father back, and I don't care for that. I've got an auntie left, my last auntie left, and the Department of Human Services is trying to give her the blues. And I'm going to do battle with that. I'm going to do battle with that because that particular last standing blood aunt means everything to me. So I'm raising these questions, and I'm going to say a little bit more. Hold on, callers. One of the biggest surprises, and I'm naive in many areas, but one of the biggest surprises that I have had this week is to watch another emergency manager situation unfold. Here is a charter school in Brightmoor community, organized back in 2011. The school was in operation before 2011. But in 2011, Madam Superintendent came to that facility, again, right there in Brightmoor. And there were gangs. I remember the day she called me, and it wasn't her that called me, it was Carol Watson, who was a teacher at that facility at that time. But Carol called me, you know, one of my best friends, and she's gone, had to give her back. And Carol called me, and she said, look, I need you to come over here because we need some social workers and we need some resource persons. And, you know, Maureen, you know this, and this is your expertise. So I came, and I took a look, and it never occurred to me to say, Carol, I'm not going to help you, because what I saw were these little children, and I don't mean little, but I'm talking about the 9th, 10th, 11th graders that were fighting in the streets with chains and bricks and sticks. What I saw was security coming out of the building, trying to chase kids and get them to stop this violence. When I went inside, what I saw were people masquerading as students walking up and down the hall, dice games being played in the bathrooms, gambling. There was a suspicion of drugs. And here was Madam Superintendent Carol Watson and a few more folks. And we were asked to come to this school and try to see if we could straighten this thing out and make education and learning a priority. And now, this is 2018, and there is a suggestion that Madam Superintendent is not good enough. The argument is that she is not an educator. She's got a license in being an attorney, a practicing attorney, a practiced attorney, a skilled attorney, been working in and around the city of Detroit a lot of years. And she comes to this school and puts together teams of folks that can work miracles. And where are we now in 2018? Well, in 2018, where we are is that the students at this school that have taken SAT tests, the most recent test scores is that we are number 3 of all of the charter schools. Where are we now? 98% graduation rates. 98%. And that means those students that have not completed all of their requirements, the educational requirements, have to stay and go to school over the summer. There's no question. You know, you have to do what we tell you to do. And everybody's going to get a high school diploma. So you must go to school now over the summer because you would not knuckle down and pay attention to some activities that were happening over those 4 years. 99% of the students that we graduate are accepted into post-secondary educational opportunities. That other 1%, they go to the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, or the National Guard. We have a football team. I don't know what's going to happen on the game tonight, but up until last week, we were 7-0. Mercilessly beating other teams, the boys' football team, the girls' volleyball, champions, scouts coming in and around to try to see how they might be able to move this student or that student into a black college, into a white college, into any kind of college, or into a football league, or into a baseball league, or into a volleyball league. Money, resources all around, all of these things that are happening. And the suggestion is that she did not have the certification document when she was hired in 2011. The board knew that and asked her to come and do it anyway. Board members rotate on and rotate off. The board that was there in 2014, do you have the certification document? I do not. Well, we want you to stay here anyway, and we'll work it out. She's got the certification now. And here comes Lansing, Michigan, Department of Education, sending a conservator from the Charlevoix County into Detroit Community Schools this week. And the very first thing that the conservator did is to say some of these academic after-school programs that are being offered here are going to be ended almost immediately because these students are getting some kind of an academic enhancement that they probably don't need. So we're going to let that go. And some of the ancillary support staff that have been hired to help students that might need additional kinds of support, they're out too. So lots of things are changing that have to do with maintaining a rigid academic educational foundation. And none of those things are supposed to be occurring until Judge Craig Strong makes a decision about whether or not the Michigan Department of Education and the authorizer of the school have the capacity and the authorization, do they, to come in and wreck the foundations of these students. That court case happens Tuesday, October the 30th. And my hope is that some of you will be able to join and come down to that court case. It's on a Tuesday, and it'll happen in the Coleman Alexander Young Municipal Building, also known as City County Building, in Judge Craig Strong's courtroom. The entrance off of Woodward is the way to go in, and he is in courtroom 1411, 1411. The hearing starts at 11 o'clock, and it should be educational for us all, for folks that have never seen an emergency manager scenario. You'll get a chance to see it up front. And for those of us who are very familiar with emergency managers that come in and swoop in and take away resources and whatnot and hire their family and friends, then we've seen this before. So I'll take a few calls now that I've shared some of these things, and we'll get back to these. Caller, you've been so patient. Thank you for waiting, and thank you for calling. Ask Welfare Rights.
You're welcome.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to know about Marion. I know she's going to be all right. Yeah. Also, I want to ask, whatever happened to Mother Rose? I'm going to hang up and listen.
It'll take... Mr. Watkins is going to have to give, or Henry Tyler, give us any kind of news about Mother Rose. My guess is that we had to give her back. That's my guess. I don't know that, but I'm asking for the folks that are here. Maybe they could just let us know. I don't know. Caller, you're on the air. You've been so patient. Thank you for waiting, and thank you for calling Ask Welfare Rights.
Well, hello, Ms. Taylor.
And good afternoon.
Okay. I would like to answer that lady's question.
Yes.
Mother Rose, yes, she has made her transition.
Yeah, I figured that. Okay.
And with that being said, I want to tell you that Miss Eastside family wants me to tell Marion, thank her for coming and bringing that delicious fish and chicken.
Mm-hmm.
And also, and the last thing I would like to say is that Detroit Housing now has set up a different forum. Have you heard of that yet?
Oh, you talking about Detroit Housing Coalition?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So everybody know that if you were on a waiting list, you got to go back and reapply it all over again. So I just thought I would let people know that.
That's good information, but you have to tell them if you're on what kind of waiting list.
Oh, Section 8.
Mm-hmm.
If you're disabled, Social Security, senior citizens, any of those.
Okay. And I'd heard of this already, and I know that Ted and some of the folks over at the Housing Coalition are taking a look at this, because if you are on a list for Section 8 in certain communities and whatnot, and then I guess the message is that the records were accidentally deleted. I'm not sure, exactly what does that mean, because most government agencies have backup computers and whatnot, and backup files is what I mean. So yes, I had heard that, and anybody that has an issue with that, I have the number if you will let me give it. I have the number for folks to call. 313-963-3310. 313-963-3310 is the number to Detroit Housing Coalition. Okay?
Okay, and that's at 2727 2nd Avenue.
That's right across the street from the Masonic Temple.
Right, and across the street from that, I ain't going to mention it.
Please, thank you, ma'am.
But anyway, I just thought I would share that information because I didn't want to share it last week because of Mrs. Eastside. And so I just thought I would call tonight.
And thank you. I appreciate you, okay?
Okay, and you have a wonderful evening, okay?
And thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Mm-hmm. Caller, you've been so patient. Thank you for waiting, and thank you for calling Ask Welfare Rights.
Yes, good evening.
And good evening. Good evening.
Steve, Mayor, question.
Now your voice is going in and out.
Okay, we want to hear an option. Can you hear me now?
Oh,
Good?
okay. Say it again.
We want to keep Mary in prayer. Hoping she very soon. So also, what I want to talk about, Sharon McPhail, this we need through these people that's running to support you, to come out and support you to get her back, get Sharon back over there in that where she belongs. They have no business come in and bring back an emergency action in there. Where the act being going, going good. They want to. This is the time you get these people that run the office. If they can't help, what they go get an office for a bigger project. Then the other thing I want to talk about real briefly, the funeral home can't touch. Just sin in the every time you look up, 4 bodies were found. Now they investigate the East Point thing. It was on and around me on Trump on one area funeral home. It's a Caucasian funeral home. But some of the people like me and you can buried there recently too. So that's been on the news. Just every time you do something, so
I saw it. Okay. We'll comment on it, okay?
I'm going to hang up. Thank you.
All right now. Caller, you've been so patient. Thank you for waiting, and thank you for calling Ask Welfare Rights.
Well, my prayers go up and out for Richard and Marion.
Good.
I have been thinking about Richard, too. So I know it's been a long time, and I haven't heard anything. And I haven't even heard his commercials any longer. Because, they used to always have his commercials on as well. So my prayers are definitely up and out for those two giant heroes.
That's right. That's a good thing.
You put a lot on the plate.
I got a few more things to put on there.
I bet you do. Here we go again. Monkey wrenches to stop our children from opportunity to excel.
Isn't that something?
It sounds like monkey wrenches going on again. You know, the same thing they did to the Davidson Aerospace. They walked in there and came up with some excuses of why it had to be shut down.
Isn't that something?
To tear down opportunities once again for our children to be mechanics and pilots, to excel economically and educationally.
You're so right.
I think, it just looks like you guys got to keep it a secret. You guys are talking too loud. Folks finding out that our children are about to be educated.
Can't be allowed.
That's dangerous.
Cannot be allowed.
Yep. To be educated.
Yep.
I'm telling you, it's one mess on top of another. I'll hang up and listen if I have anything to add, and make sure you continue to let us know what the support is needed, the time and the date.
And we will.
For the court and that, so people can show up and show out.
I'll say it again, and thank you so much.
Okay.
All right. Caller, you've been so patient. Thank you for waiting, and thank you for calling Ask Welfare Rights.
Good afternoon, Maureen. Linda Wheeler here with the Highland Park News.
Very good. We're ready for the Highland Park News. Go ahead.
We want to send condolences to Mayor Yap and his family. His brother passed the one day this week. They had the viewing yesterday.
My goodness. Prayers from Welfare Rights to Mayor Yap on the loss of his brother. I've only heard this for the first time right now. Okay.
Marion went, and so did one of our community activists. We all went to Andrews.
Okay.
Now, the Highland Park election for 2018, Meet the Candidates Night. It will be the school board and city council candidates will take questions from the community. Refreshments will be provided. This will be Tuesday, October the 23rd, 6 p.m. at the fire station, 25 Gerald Street. And they ask you to please RSVP. It's the Massachusetts Block Club is sponsoring this. Are you ready for that?
Okay, now you said October 23rd at 6 p.m., and this is Meet the Candidates at the fire station.
That's right.
Okay, and people should call the fire station to reserve a seat?
They're to call Marley Blackman, and that's the mayor's PR.
Okay, so they should be calling Mayor Yap's office.
I have the phone number here, though.
What is it?
313-460-3757.
Would you repeat that number one more time, please?
Yes, please RSVP at 313-460-3757.
Okay. All right. And that's the 23rd of October. Is that next Monday?
That's next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday.
At 6 p.m. at the fire station.
Okay.
25 Gerald Street.
Very good. Very good.
Refreshments will be provided.
And refreshments are going to be provided. Well, the meeting is at the firehouse, so I guess there'll be water too.
I hope so.
All right.
So that's the Highland Park news for now. Love you much, Maureen.
Back at you and kiss Mama for me, okay?
I most certainly will.
And thank you so much.
You.
All right. Caller, you've been so patient. Thank you for waiting, and thank you for calling Ask Welfare Rights.
Because I made application for the Section 8 into a complex, I got to tell what you're saying about Section 8.
Oh, okay. You're saying you made an application?
Yeah, recently made an application.
Okay, and
so
now...
I got to tell in about Section 8.
Okay. What we're hearing is that there are some Section 8 applications that ended up being deleted off of computers. And I don't know how that could happen, but I've heard that. And that folks may have to reapply. And in order to figure out if your name and your application has been deleted or not, you might have to call the Housing Coalition and have them look up your application, where you filed it, and have them check to see if it's still online someplace. And I'd be happy to give you the number.
Okay, I think I got it. You would send it out. Okay, go ahead.
313-963-3310.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Caller, you've been so patient. Thank you for waiting, and thank you for calling Ask Welfare Rights.
Hey, how you doing, Miss Taylor?
Fine, sir.
Did you ever make it over to Noble School?
No, but I sent somebody over to Noble School that took pictures. I work with Coach Washington, and we are all, I couldn't go. He went and took pictures. And we are now circulating those pictures, that Facebook stuff, and trying to get details about who's doing this, who is the intended audience. I've seen the pictures. It's beautiful.
Yes, okay. Listen,
Yes.
they had the ribbon cutting ceremony today.
Really?
Yeah.
Who was at the ribbon cutting?
Again, Dave Leland.
Gabe Leland. Gabe Leland had just
Yes.
confessed to his crime the other day?
This is his District 7.
Oh,
And,
okay.
what's his name? Well, I can't think of this guy's name. His
So-
dad's a state rep, and he's a state rep.
So sounds like it was it a lot of people there to cut the ribbon?
Oh, quite a few. Several media all stations were there, 247.
Okay, I've been at work all day, and so I don't have those details. I'm glad you shared it, but tonight, by the time I go home, I'm going to take a look at this, because I've seen those
Yes.
pictures.
Well,
Somebody
it was,
is being prepped for some beautiful things.
Considering what you just said about the pictures you took, this project was not supposed to be finished till next year.
But it's finished.
The neighborhood Black Hub person made the call that they needed it done, and they got it done this week.
Wow.
He said that himself.
We're going to have to take a look at it. I say, I've seen the pictures, and it is gorgeous. And it doesn't look like...
They gave out over 100 basketballs to the kids.
Well, the kids need all of that. But it looks like you have stumbled on something that none of the rest of us knew, and that, community people think about plans and what's going to happen this weekend and next month. These other folks make plans 5 and 10 years down the road. and we're not involved, no community conversations or whatnot. But I think we've got enough people looking and watching this now, so we can determine who's the audience being
Well, the media
prepared for
props they
this.
used were the Noble Middle School students and Northwestern High School students.
Okay, so it sounds like they're prepared to open something up for these students, if not immediately, certainly after the year is over and in January. Is that a feeling you're getting?
Mm-hmm.
Well, looks like somebody found money. I hate it when that happens. You put your hand in your pocket, you say, hey, how'd that $5 million get in there? That happens a lot. You didn't know that money was in that pocket, so it looks like you have
They
stumbled
got a
on.
little offended at me, though, when I asked how come we're not getting piston tickets instead of this trinket.
Well, I understand about trinkets. I tell you, caller, continue to look, 'cause I got folks taking pictures now, okay?
All right. Have a
Thank
good
you, sir.
weekend.
Thank you so very much. Caller, you on the air. Thank you for waiting, and thank you for calling Ask Welfare Rights.
Yes, to check that up at North High School over there on Great, where, and that's where the river cutting was. It had ball park that made the new track and everything else. Some rich, what is from somewhere, he's putting up money to do around this city and different schools and whatever.
I saw something day before yesterday, and I want to say the Ralph Wilson Foundation.
Yeah, on Channel 2 this evening, to the news. So the river, they've already a whole lot over there playing. They will, he's doing a whole lot of more parts throughout the city. Over at Noble, up North Line, I know that's there.
Yeah, up there by Fullerton. Mm-hmm.
Right. Now, if they really want to talk about somewhere occupied, right there on Mac, where Newsom Middle School used to be on Shane and Mac, right corner, Newsom. They tore the building down.
I've heard of it, but see, my mother didn't. My mother wouldn't let us go up there by Shane. You criminals were up there.
They got the new, they got the new track and all the basketball in the house. Now, that's an area that you don't have a lot of youngsters yet. When I passed there on the bus, my kids. So that's been up there. Can't go by quick. 2 or 4 years. So it's real bad. But that's what building company was, Northwest, and there was a lot of children.
I'm going to watch it.
Yeah,
I'm going to watch it tonight so I can see if I can get some context about what that's about,
Yeah, you also see that it's talking about the funeral home, both funeral homes. Time to hang up.
Okay, I've got that. All right, thank you, caller. Let me put a few more things on the plate because we're down to about 16 minutes left. There's an ongoing struggle at the African American Museum, and I want to connect this discussion I'm going to have with voting November 6th. Now, there was quite a well-attended and very rich meeting at Michigan Welfare Rights Thursday, yesterday, and it was the meeting, ANEB and some of the other folks organized this session to have further discussions around what's going on internally with the African American Museum. If you're not aware of what this particular challenge is about, it has come to pass that there are, I don't know the exact number of board members that are there, but it appears as if every board member is a corporate connected board member. So majority, I think, are African American, but we're talking about Dow Chemical vice president and this other chemical company president and this automobile company vice president, this sort of thing. And members of the community start to become concerned because some of the programming that was being suggested coming up specifically in 2019 seemed to be going away from educational opportunities that the community could benefit from. An example of that is apparently the board had suggested that during Black History Month in February of 2019, one of the main programs that would be offered would be the true revelation of the relationship between Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings, the young 9-year-old that he started to sexually assault that bore him multiple children. And the connotation seemed to suggest that he really loved her. This was a warm relationship. And that's the programming that this board, who's predominantly black, had suggested that they wanted to support and offer in February of 2019. So quite a scream went out in the neighborhood, and it was made clear, we're not going to, nobody believes that Thomas Jefferson was in love with this 9-year-old girl that he was sleeping with, forced her to come to his home while his wife was wherever, and she bore child after child after child, and God only knows how many were stillborn, and, that sort of thing. And so after all of this rage went out, what they decided was to kind of flip it. And we're not so much going to look at Thomas Jefferson, one of the fathers of America, but we're going to look at her and look at her stamina and her strength and her perseverance and how she fought to have certain rights for others. Very strange story, but it opened up a window to the thinking, to the consciousness of the board. And I want to connect that to what we talk about here, and that is this question of voting. Please write down that on Saturday, October the 27th, 27, Saturday, October 27th, at the African American Museum, at 11 o'clock, there's going to be a panel presentation about issues germane to Detroit, Wayne County. So some of that is going to be about students and water being poisoned in the Detroit school system, and what are the recommendations? What do you know about this? What are the community recommendations on how we might be able to address this? And that's going to be one of the discussions. Another discussion is going to be this board at the African American Museum, and what are our concerns about this board. A third area is we'll have Sharon McPhail, Superintendent Sharon McPhail, who's in exile right now because they're trying to keep her away from her, she's the captain of the ship, and they're trying to keep her, the captain, away from the ship. But she is expected to be there, 11 o'clock, 27th of October, to talk about Detroit community schools and water in our school, and SAT test scores at our school, graduation rates at our school, and enrollment in post-secondary educational opportunities at our school. So that's going to be a big deal. You need to show up, as one of the callers already indicated. You should be there Saturday, October 27th. The programming begins at 11. And along with that discussion, even though this is not primary to this discussion, for those of you that don't know, Charles Farrell, Ferrell, is the programming director at the African American Museum. I heard last night at Central Church that some of the different programs that have been offered there over the last several years have not been well attended. And that would be news to me, because every time I go to the African American Museum, you have to park a block away because there's so many cars and so many people in there. And certainly the General Baker Institute had classes at that facility, political education classes every Sunday for a year and a half, and I guess they're on hiatus right now, and those classes are due to return sometime in December or January, I'm not sure. But there's a children's college, freedom schools, all kinds of things going on at the African American Museum. So Charles is being threatened, and there's a suggestion that maybe he's not going in the same direction as this new board. So one of the discussions that came up at the meeting last evening is that we should be concerned, not pushing Charles into any position one way or the other, but we need to stand with him, and any efforts to try to say he's not relevant, we should speak truth to that kind of power, because his programming has absolutely been magnificent. I was there for the 50th anniversary of Wayne County Community College, and it was a gala conversation about that. I was there for the celebration, commemoration of the 50th anniversary of the 1967 rebellion. I was there on many, many occasions to talk about the history of African Americans, including one of the slogans that came up at the meeting last night, and that is Africans and African Americans have history that came before 1618. Oftentimes in the history books, 1618, when the first slaves were brought here, or the first Africans, whatever they were brought here, and then starting from that date and forward, as if the 3, 4, 5,000 years or more that happened before 1618, just not there. So, you know, the message is that from the moment we showed up on these shores, we were slaves or about to be slaves. But the whole history of Timbuktu, Shante, all of the different names of the different places where we were building cities and we were building ships and we were astrologers and we were alchemists and all of, you know, doctors, physicians, and finding all of these herbs and spices out in the fields and out in the woods and out in the jungle areas that were natural solvers of different kinds of conditions. So those activities are happening on October the 27th. You should be there. I got several requests we have a wonderful young student. His name is, last name is Saunders. I'll just go there. And his mother passed away. Bless her heart. She was so wonderful. She passed away in May or June that just passed. And this particular student, you know, he just went crazy. Of course he would. He was a kid. And I only noticed a couple of days ago that I hadn't seen him in a while. And I, you know, called around and asked, you know, where is he? Is everything all right? And what I'm hearing is that his family has made a decision that they might relocate to another place because there's just so much sadness right now. She has multiple children. She had multiple children. No, that's not true. She has multiple children. And even though they had to give her back, you know, there's someone in the family that's reaching out to say, you're not lost, we're here, and we're going to help you get through these next few years. And I think of that, and I raise that because all of these funerals that happen, I was at Cantrell's, not the east side one that's closed down, and Carla was talking about the problems that they're having over there, but the Cantrell Funeral Home in East Point, where we had to lay Miss Eastside to rest. And all I could think of is, you know, the cost for these funeral services. And I want to raise this issue again. If you don't write down anything else, please write down Wayne State University Body Bequest. That's BEQUEST. Wayne State University Body Bequest Program. I first heard about this from my dad, who was a medic in the Army. And when he, you know, long before I showed up, he was talking about body bequest programs where you send your remains at the point of death to one of these colleges. And they use your body to study blood, to study skin, to study brain cells, to study diabetes, to study cancer, to study tuberculosis, HIV, and anything else. And Wayne State University will provide all of the funeral services. At the end of homegoing services, the body is sent to the college, and after they finish using parts of it, like my mom's skin went to lots of folks who had burns. So mama's skin is all over the place. My mom's eyes went to somebody who needed eyes. So, Miss Pauline is everywhere, and I think about that all the time. So, you should think about your remains going to a body bequest program. I know a lot about the Wayne State University one because my family and most of Welfare Rights is already signed up. There is an application process, and I urge you, at the point of someone passing, you're so devastated, undertakers will talk to you about the kinds of money you need to spend. And it's like if you love your mom or your dad, your sister, your brother, your husband, your wife, whoever it is, if you love them a lot, you'll spend all of this money. But don't forget that this is money that's going to the funeral home. It's not going to bring your child or bring that person back. So I want to urge people, body bequest, Boquest. You can call Wayne State University and get some information about the body bequest program. A couple more things. Cantrell, I said, these elections. All right, we have to vote on November the 6th. If nothing else, Snyder, who is in office now, and he's leaving with full benefits. Mr. Schuette only recently started to recollect that as the Attorney General, he could have said something or done something once he was notified about Flint. If you don't know anything else about Mr. Schuette, who is now running for a government chair, you should remember 4 words: Flint, Michigan. You just should remember that. We're talking about July 14th of 2014 is when the first time we were alerted here in Detroit at Welfare Rights that there were some problems with the water. And he has done little or nothing about that. But I wanted to have a broader discussion. We've only got about 3 minutes left, and then it'll be it for tonight. The broader discussion is, we need to recollect and realize that all of the candidates that run for office pretty much are candidates that were offered by power structures. These are folks that were given to us. So you get to decide if you want this one or if you want this one. In this particular case, in terms of the governor's race, we don't have a lot of choices. This Bill Schuette is part and parcel of Snyder, part and parcel of Engler, part and parcel of a sort of a government that says we're going to hold single men and single women food. We're going to hold their food ransom. If they don't work, if they don't have a volunteer job, they're not able to prove that they're in training or something along those lines, they can't eat. I don't know about you, but I understand bad, I understand wrong when I see it, just like this emergency manager, the overseer, the bad seed that has showed up at Detroit Community Schools. I recognize bad, I recognize evil when I see it, and this is not the first carpetbagger that I've ever heard of, but right now we have an election that's coming. We have to be real careful because if I recall at the last election, we had some 20, 30,000 votes that could not be counted. We're not going to tolerate that again. So we have to make certain that we say something about we want to see how this vote is going to be counted. So we want to pay attention to all the things that are going on because Michigan is not going to be on the list of folks that holds people's food ransom. We don't want to be there. All right, we need national housing. We need national health care. We need national programs that will deal with folks that are standing on a corner with a sign that says we'll work for food. There's no reason why we have this level of poverty that continues to rise. So I want to mention that even though in Georgia, when these African Americans came to vote on the bus, the candidate wouldn't let them vote. So we got a lot of problems. But we're from the state of Michigan. It's just certain things we just not going to allow. And that's certainly one of them. The last thing I'll mention is October. Oh, no, I've read that already. And what's this? Northern High School. That's it. I have talked about everything except the one last piece about thaw. Thaw is now taking applications at the Griswold office, and that's downtown. You have to call them, make an appointment, and you have to go there. There's only a little bit of money. And when I say little bit, there are millions, but they're doing different things in the state of Michigan now where the federal government is sending LIHEAP money, which is low-income money, for utilities directly to Lansing, and Lansing has decided that they're going to let the Department of Human Services push money out to different communities, and that never works right. So Thaw is kind of defying that a little bit and saying, if you want some help with a light or gas bill, contact Thaw. They're on Griswold downtown. If you need the number, you have to look up 1-555-1212 and get a hold of the folks at Thaw. I met with some folks at DTE this morning. Our folks are going to be protected. If you're low income, we're going to get you on LSP, Low Income Self-Sufficiency Plan. All right, listen here is playing. Mr. Eddie Harris has showed up again. That means we are done for the night. I hope I've been able to share some information that's helpful to you. And as always, let's try to be nicer to each other. Lord willing, the creek don't rise. Marion will be here next Friday because I plan on going on vacation out of the country. Bye.